Hello, hello! Welcome back to my channel, and this is my July wrap-up. Alright, stats, here we go! 6 books, 1,838 pages. 4 of the books are from new authors, and 2 of the books are from authors I haven't read from before. 3 of the books were read physically, and 3 of the books were listened through audiobook, and 5 of them are a part of a series, and 1 of them is a standalone novel. We got 2 graphic novels. We got, oh God, a fiction. We got another fiction. And we got a fantasy romance. No. That took me so long to do. We got a fantasy and a poetry. The first book I read in July is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. This is a very popular book, and I'm sure a lot of people have read it, but I'll go ahead and give a synopsis in case you don't know what this is about. This is a fantasy book with fairies, and our main character, Feyre, finds herself in some trouble with the fairy lands, and at the beginning of the book, she kills a wolf who happens to also be a fairy, and this is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, or loosely a retelling, but she has to go live in the fairy lands and goes on kind of a journey of learning about the fairies and their world, and there's a male main character in here who is a fairy that there may or may not be a romance with. I gave this one 4 stars. I did like this book. It did seem to drag on a bit towards like kind of the middle area when she's kind of in the fairylands, kind of meeting everyone and kind of just exploring. And this has a lot of superpowers or magical powers, which I really like. I do really enjoy reading about people with powers. I think it makes the story really interesting. Those are my favorite kind of fantasy novels. This is part of a 5-book, potentially 6-book series. I just recently posted my spoiler reading vlog of this book, so if you do want more thoughts about it, feel free to go watch that. And I have continued in the series and plan to read the entire series, so I am excited for that, and I've only heard it gets better from there. Next up in July, I read Beast Boy Loves Raven. This is a graphic novel by Garcia and Gabriel Picolo. This is a part of a series, and this goes along with the Teen Titans. If you know what that is, it's a cartoon show that I used to watch as a kid and absolutely loved. It's one of my favorite cartoon series of all time. And this is the 3rd book. The first book is Raven, and the 2nd book is Beast Boy, and then the 3rd one is The Beast Boy Loves Raven. And there's supposed to be, or I don't know how many there's supposed to be, but there's one after this, which is Robin, and there's one coming out in November that's Starfire. And I fully plan to read all of them. The first one, Raven, I gave 5 stars. The second one, Beast Boy, I gave 4 stars. And the one I read this month in July, I gave 4 stars as well. The 3rd book, Beast Boy Loves Raven, is about Beast Boy and Raven meeting for the first time. They are both traveling to Nashville, Tennessee to meet up with this person named Slade. And if you know from the cartoon, you know that Slade is the villain. But maybe they'll do something different with this one. But I mean, these are pretty much the origin stories, so I feel like this is just them coming together as a group. And that's how the Teen Titans came to be. My only things with this book is one, I felt it was a little short. I feel like this book was a bit, I feel like immature isn't really like, yes, it was immature, but this is pretty much a like middle grade novel. And I guess I wish it was a more full length graphic novel, or maybe just a regular novel that goes more adult. Like maybe if it was more dark and had a lot more to it, I think that would be a really interesting spin on the Teen Titans. But I feel like I can't fault this series because that's not what this is. The other thing that I would like to mention is there is a lot of like insta love, like Beast Boy pretty much instantly falls in love with Raven, which I mean you can pretty much guess that from the cover and obviously the title, and that usually doesn't really bother me. But in case it bothers you, there is insta love in here. Oh, I love the art style in here. Usually I'm pretty picky about the art style of like books and like TV shows and video games. I'm pretty picky about my art style, but this one I definitely really like. Otherwise, I mean, it was a good time. It was short, took me probably a day to read, and it was just a nice palate cleanser between other novels. Next up, we got The Measure by Nikki Erlick. This book follows 8 people, and one day everyone in the world wakes up with a box on their doorstep, and inside the box is a string, and it shows you the measure of your life. And this book is really a slice of life following these 8 people kind of handle what they're going to do about these boxes, whether they're going to open them or never look at them. And, if they do open it and they have a short string or a long string, what they do about that. A couple of things about this is it's a really cool concept. I have not heard of anything like this before, and it was it felt super realistic with how the world would react. There was forums on like, what people were doing, kind of like a Reddit forum for people to talk about it. There was a website that was created to calculate exactly how long your life is comparatively to how long your string is. There was support groups for people who had short strings, and have a bunch of people come together to cope with the tragedy of knowing that your life is going to potentially end soon. And it followed quite a few people. We had a politician, we had a teacher, we had an active duty military member, and then a doctor. So it was very interesting seeing those different perspectives. It was interesting how the politician was using his long string to essentially gain favor in the political presidential debate. And it was interesting to hear about the military members having to, open their boxes whether they wanted to or not because the military required it. And it's just a lot of stuff that, you don't really think about would happen. And then, it seems pretty realistic how the world would react. With all of that said, this book was very boring. The concept overall was really good, but it took me a long time to get through this. It was just kind of dragging. Like I felt like, this could have been, a good novella, and then we kind of moved on. Or I think it would have been better if we had more perspectives than just the 8, if we kind of just kept going from different perspective to different perspective. I did give this 3 stars. I'm glad I read it. The ending is good. It does wrap everything up nicely. It, gives kind of the, what happens to everyone at the end, and it wraps it up nicely for you. It was quite emotional, actually. I wouldn't say it was a big plot twist, but there was a little plot twist at the end, which I think is what made it be a 3-star, because there was quite a while I was kind of dragging along with this one as well, and nothing really crazy happens. You're just going through their mundane life of just different activities they're doing based on, whether they're going to these support groups or whether they're meeting with friends or dealing with, friends dying because they, open their box. And let me know down below, would you open your box and look at your string? Because before I read this, I was in the boat of, I'm opening the box. I want to know how long the string is for me. But by the end of this book, I think I changed my mind. I don't think I would. Because the thing about it is, everyone who opened their box and their string was long, great. They got to go on about their day and like nothing changed. But for those people who had short strings, their entire like world changed. They, in a way, like stopped enjoying life because of this like essentially impending doom of their string ending. And like it's almost like kind of extra scary to see your death coming instead of it just kind of unfortunately happening out of the blue. Next up, we got a poetry collection, Pillow Thoughts by Courtney Peppernell. This is another palette cleanser after the measure. This book I gave 3 stars. I did tab it up like usual. I'll go ahead and put them on the screen. This one I did give 3 stars. It wasn't as good as I was hoping for it to be. It was starting out with happier poems, and then it kind of just got more sad from there. And as I've said before, I'm trying to find more happier, build yourself up poems that aren't so sad. And I liked a lot of the poems in here. I mean, I did definitely tab it up pretty good, but I just didn't love any. And like, there were certain sections that were good, but I just didn't relate to it all. So I think that's why I didn't love them as much. There was one section in here that I gave 5 stars to. It was about a guy who was in love with a girl and was just sharing all of his feelings about her, and it was just very, very sweet. There was 11 sections in here, and I did rate each individual section. I'll put that in the description below if you're interested in it. But yeah, after averaging out all of the different ratings for each section, it ended up being a 3-star, which is why I'm sticking with that. There's nothing really, I guess, else to talk about this one. Still on the journey to find a 5-star poetry collection. Actually, just to find a 5-star in general, too. I haven't had a 5-star in a while, and I'm quite sad about it. Next up, I read It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This book started off really strong for me. It felt very rom-com love story between our main character Lily and Ryle, and I loved their banter and then flirting. It was a really good time, but halfway through, 150 pages through, it turned into a completely separate book. This book is marketed as a romance. This is not a romance book. This is a fiction novel. And the synopsis makes it seem like it's this love triangle drama between our main character Lily, the guy Ryle she meets, and her childhood best friend Atlas. But that's not what it is either. The synopsis of this book is Lily meets a guy, Ryle, and she falls in love, and they go through this very loving relationship until one day it turns abusive. And it's her dealing with that, and it's this cycle of her, Lily, main character. Her parents were also, her mom was in an abusive relationship with her father, and then now she is finding herself in an abusive relationship, and how this cycle is continuing. And it gives a lot of good insight and perspective to, unfortunately, a domestic violence case like this. And it's showing that it's not so easy and black and white as everyone on the outside can see. It's not always, why doesn't she leave? And it's like, well, why is he hitting her? And it's giving more in depth on why it's not so black and white. There's a lot of gray in between, and it's her dealing with that and having complications and her just figuring it out and being, unfortunately very sad about the situation because she loves this person that she met and now she's having to deal with the cards that are dealt to her. And I think it has such a strong message and it has such a strong meaning that, you don't really get anywhere else. And I think it's so important to have this message out there. And I think it would be so important for maybe girls going into college to read this and kind of, just get the experience in a way of kind of maybe seeing a little bit of those red flags in a relationship like that. And I think that's just, it's so odd to me that they would market this as a romance. And even the movie that came out, they are marketing it as kind of a romance. And I just don't get it. Like, it has a romance element, but that's not what this purpose of this book is. And I feel like them marketing it as a romance only disappoints the audience later. Because I went into it thinking it was a romance, and I was disappointed with it because it turned into something completely different. And if I knew what it was going in, I think I would have enjoyed it more. So I did give it 3 stars, and it did start out strong, and maybe it would have still been the 3 stars in the end, but I don't know. But I wish it was just marketed better. So there is a second one to this. It starts with us, and I do plan to keep going in the series, but I'm definitely taking a break from it for at least a little bit before I keep going. The last book I read in July was Avatar: The Last Airbender, Smoke and Shadow. This is also a graphic novel. I've mentioned this in a couple other wrap-ups, that this is essentially Nickelodeon's graphic novel series that follows directly after the cartoon series ends, and it follows just your basic storylines that the TV show would. So this one in particular follows more information about Zuko's mom. It follows more about Azula's story after she kind of goes through what she did in the cartoon. And it also follows Zuko and May's relationship status. This one was very cute, gave it 3 stars, but as I've said previously, they are a bit immature, middle grade stories. I wish that they were a bit more adult, or maybe hopefully at some point they become a little bit more adult, but it's not really what this is, and I am mainly reading them as kind of just palate cleansers in between novels. And Avatar is also, Avatar and Teen Titans were my top cartoons of all time when I was a kid, so like it's really just nostalgia reading these stories. So I'm going to keep going with them, but there's nothing really special about them, unfortunately. So if you do love Avatar, I would highly suggest reading these graphic novels. I think it's a great way to keep the story and love for Avatar alive. Alrighty, there we have it, our July wrap up. So we had a 4-star, 4 3-stars, and another 4-star. So hopefully next month I can get some 5 stars going. But to end us off, my favorite song for the month of July was Say It Right, the remix version by Slowed Remix DJ. I love just your classic songs remixed. It's like getting to listen to your favorite songs again for the first time, but like upgraded. So if you have any favorite remixed songs that you love and want to put them down below in the comments, I would love to give it a listen. But thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!